Hello and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. Today we have a returning guest with us, Jeremy Poirier. Jeremy is CEO of Bearing Lithium, which can be traded as BRZ on the TSX Venture or as BRGRF on the OTC. Thanks, Jeremy, for being here with us today and for giving us an update.
Not a problem, Jeb. Thanks for having us.
Jeremy, you're in a very exciting sector, the lithium sector. You've had some success before in Nevada. Now you've come into Chile with Bearing. Could you highlight the project, the MARICUNGA project that Bearing Lithium is developing?
Absolutely. Our project is just under 5,000 hectares, and it's located in Chile. We do have a maiden resource on the project that was actually recently approved by the TSX Venture Exchange. It's just under 600,000 tons, and it is the highest grade undeveloped lithium brine project in the world. So the average grade on the resource is 1,250 parts per million. If you compare that to some of the resources that you've seen in Argentina, that's anywhere from 2 to 4 times higher in grade.
Can you give us an update on the transaction with Li3 Energy?
Absolutely. Right now what we're doing is we're taking on a very complex cross-border merger to acquire Li3 Energy, which is currently traded on the over-the-counter bulletin board. That company, what that will consist of is a registration statement, an F4 registration statement with the SEC. We filed that with the SEC. We've gone through the first round of comments, which was fairly exhaustive. It was 15 pages and 47 of them. We've submitted that back to the SEC. We expect to receive comments today or tomorrow. Once we receive those comments, we'll turn that around as quickly as possible. At this point in time, they have 10 business days to get back to us. So we're hoping that registration statement will be active with the SEC before the end of June. At which point we can call a shareholder vote, or Li3 Energy can call a shareholder vote, and we hope to close the transaction finally in the mid to end of July.
Jeremy, we're seeing with the lithium sector, demand is rising rapidly and supply is being sold out, especially from the major large producers. Your project is extremely high grade, and it's in an undeveloped lithium salar in Chile. Talk to us about the project and where it fits in regard to comparable to projects.
Sure. Well, as I talked earlier, the biggest difference between our project and other lithium brine projects is the grade. Grade is king on any mining project, as you know, and it is 2 to 4 times higher than what we've seen from Argentinian projects. What that means is that you're most likely going to have to you'll have less ponds, less wells, so that'll lead to a lower capex, and you have to move less brine because it's higher grade, so that leads to lower operating costs as well.
One of the things that got me excited when I saw the presentation was that how much has been invested into this project, and how much that Bearing will be fully financed through feasibility. Could you talk to us about how much has gone in and how much you'll be taken through financing-wise after this transaction is completed?
Sure. So currently there's been roughly $25 million, maybe $30 million US invested into the project. That delivered the maiden resource back in 2011. That was recently approved by the TSX Venture Exchange. Now recently there's been another $7 million program that's been undertaken by our joint venture. They drilled roughly 16 wells, 2 production wells. There's ponds. There's a weather station for our environmental study. There was long-term pumping tests that we use those flow wells for. So with that current phase, you're looking at over 30 million US. There's another 15 million US due to be completed before the middle of 2018. After that, you'll have roughly 50 million US worth of work done to the project. And with that, you'll be pretty de-risked. You'll be at a definitive feasibility study, which is pretty much as far as you can take a mining project before breaking ground to build the mining project. And we're fully carried through that entire period of time. So we don't have to dilute our shareholders. We don't have to write any checks or come up with any checks, and we'll be delivering, those milestones and those announcements, which actually includes a new resource which we hope to have out here very shortly.
And there is very few projects that already have M&I resource that's this advanced going into the feasibility, and we're seeing so many of these gigafactories being built all around the world. So Jeremy, what are your thoughts on how the Salar de MARICUNGA compares to some of the other salars in Argentina?
Well, as I've gone over now, the grade is world class, and it's, as I said, 2 to 4 times higher than what we've seen in Argentina. But one of the other things you look at with brine projects is flow rates. We've announced a number of different flow rates, and majority of them, being in the upper 20s or higher, in comparison to other projects where you'll actually see in teens, or some of them that we've seen are even in, the single-digit numbers. So the project's been much more porous than we anticipated, and that, that's very, very important, because if you can't move the brine or you can't pump enough brine, it really doesn't matter that it's high grade. So we have a project here that looks to be as porous, if not more porous, than the majority of the other brine projects in the world.
Jeremy, could you comment about Chile as a jurisdiction and working in Chile? I heard there's special circumstances around lithium.
Well, that is true. It is a strategic metal in Chile, but recently we've seen Albemarle was granted expansion in the Atacama. So we do see it opening up. We also have some grandfathered concessions, so we could potentially produce from those grandfathered concessions, and we expect the permitting to be hopefully resolved within 2017. So we see that as something that's going to be being resolved in the next in a short period of time, and worst case scenario, we do have the grandfather properties that we could start small scale production on.
Jeremy, as we conclude here, could you focus investors on what makes the management team and the board so unique amongst junior lithium miners?
I think our management team has a unique mix. If you look at for example, myself, I worked with Pure Energy recently. I was one of the co-founders. We signed a deal with Tesla. We delivered a resource next to the only producing lithium brine mine in North America. I've been in lithium myself for 7 years, so I do have quite extensive experience within that sector, and there's not a lot of people that I don't think could say that. That you also look at our VP of Business, Benjamin Asuncion. He's was 10 years. He was an analyst at Haywood Securities. He's primarily did a lot of work in lithium recently before he departed. He underwrote his own salary to join us here. So to have someone like that on board, is obviously great for the company. You look at Luis, who's currently the president and CEO of Li3 Energy. He's joined us in advance of the transaction closing as our president of South American operations. He founded this project with Li3 Energy. He did a deal with POSCO. They were given $18 million through an investment in Li3 Energy initially when they were acquiring this ground. So nobody in Chile probably knows more about the MARICUNGA than he does, and his entire technical team has joined the joint venture. So we have a very strong technical team. And then if you look at Mr. Patrick Cousin, he's the chairman of Li3 Energy, and he lives in Santiago, so it gives us someone in Santiago that speaks Spanish and has a lot of different high-level contacts. He worked for Codelco in the past, for example, and they're currently running a process in Chile that's been publicly announced. So, you have a unique mix of people, which makes our team very strong.
And I forgot to mention, Jeremy, the share structure, the capital structure, and the financial position is very attractive. Could you make a final comment about the structure and the financial position?
Sure, absolutely. So currently we have roughly 2 million Canadian in the bank with no real large expenditures other than closing this transaction. We have in the money warrants. We currently trade roughly 80 cents. We have 25-cent warrants, which should bring in another roughly $2.3 million Canadian before October of this year, so we don't have to go back to market. Those are built into our cap structure, and then we just have to issue the shares at the closing of the transaction, which is 16 million. So right now we're just under 26 million shares, and fully diluted will be somewhere around 54 to 55 million.
Jeremy Poirier, President, CEO, Bearing Lithium, which can be traded as BRZ on the TSX Venture and as BRGRF on the OTC. You can get more information on the company by going to bearinglithium.com, Bearing, BEARING, lithium.com. Thank you, Jeremy, for being here with us today and for giving us some insights and an update into Bearing Lithium.
Not a problem, Jeff. Thanks for having us.